Welcome to Pigeon River Farm, doing farming right. I'm Robert Brown, the owner of Pigeon River Farm. Thank you for viewing. Well, good evening. In tonight's episode, we're going to talk about sick soil and sick people, and how I have the hope that RFK Jr. is going to have some kind of an impact on it. We have had no impact, multiple administrations going back. So I do see a glimmer of hope coming up here to help us look at this. And I'm looking at it from a pure sick soil perspective. Because if you have sick soil, in other words, there's no nutrients in it, you're inevitably going to have sick people. That's just the way it works. Healthy soil and nutrient-rich crops, by their own design, make healthier people. I have to look at it from the perspective of all the years being in one form or another in the farming industry. I've never ever let it go. I've seen the effects of the chemical farming and how the effects have taken place. I've seen bad farming policies. Unfortunately today, to make money in farming, you must follow often very misguided policies. These are put forth by the industrial farming model. Focuses strictly on high yield. If you think back to the farm crisis of the 80s, and the big push then was consolidate, consolidate, consolidate. So we've identified what the problems are. RFK, I notice, has written a lot of articles. I don't agree with him on many policies. Some of the things are a little on the radical side, but we need to look at this from a health standpoint. If we can just make people healthier, and that's one thing I will have to give him credit for. He's a man of his word. He has never changed his tone when it comes to health and health policies. Might be some things there that are a little off the chart as far as his business structure that I totally disagree with. But, and like in everything in life, you're going to have certain things you agree with and certain you don't. I have many friends that I agree with 80% of what they say, and 20% I'm going, what are you thinking? You may be thinking that with me. But this is the reality. We need to have some kind of catalyst, some kind of spark that takes place here to get a change going. And we need to get this change going because we've now had decades of subsidies to prioritize maximum output. Okay, where this goes is every business model out there goes for more and more and more yield. We have plenty of food. If you remember, numerous occasions we've seen where farmers had to dump feed food or corn, soybean. There's no home for it. Well, what is that telling us? Then we also have big lobbies out there. Big Ag is a massive lobby. The chemical companies, that's basically their sister, they have massive lobbies. The pharmaceutical companies make all kinds of money off of farms for animal treatment. So we have all of that going on. No wonder you never hear any lobbyist, any discussion on why are people sick? Why are we not having small farms? A lot of lip service made to it, but every policy in place goes against small, diverse farms. Interestingly enough, knowing one of the biggest auctioneers and real estate companies in the state of Wisconsin, I know one of the owners personally, and I've asked him straight up, how much farmland is being sold to foreign concerns, i.e. the Chinese and the like. And he says, I don't have hard numbers because they're always buried in a corporation. So you really never you have to unthread it, and sometimes some light comes out when they're doing the closing that gives the indication that this is very remotely owned. And some of our homegrown investments. Homegrown investments can be our Bill Gates of the world. We talk about him, just keeps buying up farmland. If you have money in a retirement, there is a much better than even chance that you actually are funding farmland being bought up. You probably are a farmer and not even knowing it. You look at your statement for your retirement or your investments, and in there will lie farmland that's being purchased. Do you think anybody that rents farmland is going to treat it like the owner? Have any care? And is there any provision to actually look at this thing from a health standpoint? No, there's not. It's strictly what is my profit margin. So if it's sitting in a financial vehicle, it's being rented, are you going to go to the highest renter or the lowest? Obvious, it's going to be the highest. So it's highest yield, utilization, take as much, strip mine that soil every year relentlessly. That is what goes on. And I've seen it with my own eyes. It's anybody, you ask anybody in agriculture, they're going to go in and tell you all about it. So we have a massive depletion because of these policies. We've lost the organic matter, the decreased microbiology. The microbiology, I spent a significant amount of money in developing the microbiology of my soil. My soil is the most precious thing on the farm, most valuable thing on the farm. And I can tell you, because I've seen this happen, if one of the big CAFOs around here, if this land for some heaven reason ever came up, they will come in and they will corn this thing for 5 years to suck every last bit of that wonderful nutrients in it. Then they won't care. And I've seen it even locally here. So this is really what goes on. Because of this depletion, this mining of the soil, we have a reduced mineral and vitamin content in the crops themselves. I'll make a special video on going into details that I have seen again and learned about this from some true experts, because I'm always willing to learn. I'm also willing to admit sometimes I don't know the right answer, but I have made it my life's mission to understand the importance and see if somehow we can get healthy foods, we get rid of the sick soils and all the sick people, and we can have healthy food, and maybe, just maybe, small farms can actually earn some money. Wouldn't that be something? The biggest thing I see is the surge in chronic diseases, autoimmune. Now that can be in people, and that's specifically what I'm talking about tonight, from this sick soil, but also in our livestock. My gosh, you think about what goes on in any kind of the livestock operations. So mammal or bird, they're all fighting the same thing. Yet you get around sustainable farms. And one of the things you don't have going on there is you don't have these big vet bills, you don't have the pharmaceutical needs. They're just not there. Gut microbiome is something that we need to think about. It's something I'm very aware of. Again, with back to the animals. When you're treating an animal, you're looking at their gut bacteria. We actually use probiotics and different enzymes to make our livestock healthier. I do the same thing for myself. I look at it from that perspective. And that the gut-brain barrier, that ability, is very real. You start doing some reading, you see that there's an immense amount of data. Well, if you're constantly consuming crops that have been treated to kill the bacterial life for proper longevity on a store shelf, in a storage at the farm, whatever the process is, you now have to think about that's going right to you. I remember seeing a comment in one of my past videos that, well, they've been using glyphosate all over the world, and I don't know how it ever touched people's food. I call BS to that. I hate BS beyond belief. Just watch the crop dusters or the big sprayers. What are they spraying on your wheat 3 to 5 days before it's combined? It's glyphosate. If you had oats, rye, any of the cereal grains. I'm about 50 miles from big potato country, the second biggest area in the United States. They terminate, other than the organic fields, they terminate all the potato plants before harvest with glyphosate, with Roundup. One day it's all standing up there nice and green. Next thing it's all laying down there flat. That's how the world works. So yes, we are getting exposed to that. So I tell everybody, go out and do a little investigation. Start learning about what you're putting in your mouth, because you're the one who's going to be suffering when your health fails. When your health fails, you end up being miserable alone. Think about that. So many people that when their health fails, nobody visits them anymore, and they're just miserable. and kind of running out the clock, so to speak. So let's get that, and at least we have some tools that are under our control here. Now let's talk about the consolidation of farmland itself. The big thing, the government policies are to consolidate, consolidate, consolidate. There is so much government subsidies now to allow farmers to get bigger. And there's processes and controls that are in place. And I'll go a complete video on this at another time. But let's take about just confined animal operations. They literally, the government is paying for putting in a sewage treatment plant, a massive one. What I've heard, the numbers, again, verify this, but I heard it's equivalent, well, most of the big CAFO is about equivalent to a city with 10,000 people in it. They're putting in, and then they have to haul this liquid manure on town roads. I happen to be a town board member. Our roads are falling apart. They're not going to ever come back. And we're putting 100, not 80,000 pound trucks, 120,000 pound vehicles full of liquid are driving back and forth on our country roads that never were ever thought of designing this. Where the small sustainable farms, this, even if they're pulling manure spreader down the road, it is doing little or no harm versus this. So these are all the hidden subsidy costs. So yeah, this massive piece of equipment to make farming efficient, but at the expense of everybody in one form or another. Now let's talk about some limits. There again, let's talk about levels, not bans. I don't want to hear the word banning. I'm going to put in place rules that make, just like in our sports teams, there's rules that they have to follow that even out the playing field. If you've ever been involved with motorsports, I drag raced, you have time differences when you take off on the Christmas tree there. That is a good example. At least what I think of here. So there's all these true costs that are in place, and if we could actually standardize, and that's why I'm harping so much on putting together something where we measure the nutrient density. That nutrient density is kind of the game changer, because now you can decide what kind of farming you want to do. If the marketplace is paying significantly greater because you're actually giving somebody a higher value product, well, then you should win. And if you're smarter and better and more clever and you got all them things, you can put this together the most efficient way possible. And you can't cheat because it would be a standard. Right now it's all greenwash, so it means absolutely nothing. Organic standards are still pretty good. Most of the ones that I've seen that are the best are actually a lot of the outside of government, as an example of the animal welfare approved that I am. I mean, man, you wouldn't believe how tough that certification is. It's the real deal. It's much tougher than the organic, and they really mean it. But that's people putting their money where their mouth is. They truly believe in something, and they want to make the world better. And that's what I've been harping on. If you don't go out and protest and complain, do something. That's a key there. Do something. Okay, things that I guess are getting a little bit better. Better crop rotation, and the big thing now has been cover crops. I will have to give the USDA big kudos for that. Big push now on cover crops. That is one thing that has been doing, eliminate erosion, and also helping get some of the microbiome back in. There's also a big push for reduced chemical input. Main reason, this is all running in our rivers. The rivers have really been a big problem, and I guess that's one of the canary in the coal mine. It's one of the first indicators, hey, we got a problem. Integrating livestock, and I'm hoping I'm on the pointy end of the spear here, making a difference. High intensity or rotational grazing, there's different styles for it, is really important, and so much more of this land. I've seen some tech that I'm really impressed with, and these are specialized fenceless systems where they put a collar on the livestock, and they're trained just like you would train a dog, with limited, almost no discomfort to them at all. Typical learning curve is 1 to 3 days. After that, you don't need a fence, and I see that as going to be a game changer in the next decade. Because now we're going to have a lot of these fields that we can actually put livestock back out there and get the process going. Then we talk about composting. things that can be done on scale. I mean, great to do it in your backyard for your garden, thumbs up. But I'd like to see this done at scale. And in back, what I mentioned before is nutrient density testing and transparent labeling. I know RFK's talked an awful lot about that. We again need to label. So if that label truly had some teeth behind it, you tell me what the answer is. I don't know if it's the federal government. My confidence is relatively low. Maybe prove me wrong. That's what I say to Uncle Sam. Prove me wrong. Show me what you can actually do. Or some other methods. But we need something with some teeth in it and some credibility. Get some honesty back into our world. Now, one of the things that I've seen, it's difficult to transition away from chemicals. And I know I saw in the comments, oh, you can't do this. Well, no, you cannot do this. It's been tried at rapid fire. And when I made the transition here over a 3-year period, it was still a little bit raggedy. So let's look at models. If the government's going to be subsidized, instead of putting in, $1 million this and $1 million that on these big CAFOs and big grain and big bean and so on, why don't we look at doing something where we allow, if we're going to throw money out there, let's throw it at that and get everybody. It's kind of thinking about taking a professional athlete and sending them to summer camp and getting them a higher skill. Well, let's get the farmers that want to participate in a higher skill, give them a chance, and have a transitional time with some methodology so they don't go bankrupt and just sell off to a big CAFO. Why don't you come up with an idea and make sure you pass it on to everybody else and try to get the momentum going on that. That would really be awesome. And then let's think about healthier livestock. That's something that I have put my heart and soul in, is try to make the life for the animals on my farm, I want to make them the highest quality possible. Whatever their ultimate purpose is during their life cycle, let's make that the best they can. And that's not only the way they get treated, but also their health. Nobody wants to see a sick animal. Okay, now let's talk about moving forward. Support initiative of soil regeneration. When you regenerate, in other words, you get the soil going, that's going to be key. You if you're not in the ag industry or directly tied to it, you can make a difference too by simply supporting your local farmer, asking farmers their opinions, get out and meet some of us. Follow up looking at this nutrient testing application, where this is coming along. I know it's pretty early emerging tech, but what I've seen in other tech areas, and that's kind of my strength, is technology, I see this moving along pretty quick. But we're going to need a marketplace out there for it too, so companies can buy in and come up with a standard, and then you have the ability to do this, or your store does, or your farmer does. It's one of my goals, is to make an acquisition in that front. Unfortunately, it won't be off the profits on the farm. That I wish I could give great news, but we've been on a inflation increase and an income decrease. And no, don't anybody tell me about the $7 eggs. That is not going to make much difference, because input costs and logistics and all that, and you can't chase this stuff around. I could go into great depth on that. Yeah, you can make a little spot market, but I could probably fly out to Vegas and get lucky too. So that's kind of how it works out. So we're going to recap here. Sick soil equates to sick people. If we can get the soil fixed, I always say if you made Doritos out of high quality ingredients, you at least have something of value to it. I'm not saying taking the poisons out. That's somebody else's battle. I'm not taking that one out. I understand, let's put at least a good foundation into the food stock, and at least you go in the right direction. Otherwise, you're eating substandard, nutrient depleted base product, your corn, your soybean, your chicken, whatever it might be, and then you're putting chemicals on top of it. So at least if you had a high quality product, and then you put the chemicals on top of it, you'd be at least going in the right direction. You wouldn't have two negatives. And then prioritize our farms, get into real health. make it a mission for the farmers to come up with healthy solutions. Let that marketplace win. You throw the gauntlet down and you give me a challenge, and I can speak for so many of my brethren. You throw a challenge down, and the challenge is not going bankrupt. The challenge is going to be, let's produce the best product humanly possible. Guess what? We will produce it. Well, I want to thank you for your time. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and have the most wonderful week.